We are back. Hey, you guys, how you doing? Welcome back for another episode of Contagious Leadership Podcast Live. Today, we have an amazing guest, Kathy Gruver, who holds a Ph.D. in natural health with an emphasis in mind-body medicine. So what does that mean? That means we have a professional hippie. That's what that means. What we have
She's
is
my people.
somebody that I found very special in our pre-call, and she has a lot of really great information to share about how we can get the best out of ourselves when focused on the right things. We're going to be back in 30 seconds to make that introduction. We'll be right back. Donnie, roll the clip. Man, Lorianne, I'm so pumped. I can't believe that we have gotten through almost an entire year with such minimal little issues, right? Minimal
I
issues.
know. I
It's
know.
been cool.
And I'm loving being a part of this show. But
So,
for
Lorianne, real
everybody,
quick, tell the
thank
folks
you.
what you do before we bring our guest in.
Thank you. I am a coach that works with coaches and consultants to help them leverage speaking opportunities, because speaking opportunities position you as the expert, attract the most ideal clients to you, and allow you to monetize your expertise.
Love that.
Take it
Love
away.
that. I have always believed that professional speaking was not what do they call that? It's been so long since I've been in school. An elective. I'd never have thought that public speaking and learning how to speak properly was an option. I always felt that it should have been a choice. Always
And look,
been. I mean, not a choice. A priority for anybody, especially
yeah.
if you're in business. I
And
love
look,
what you do.
you are using those skills every week on this very show.
Well, I don't know how well we're doing it. So again, and my name is Rigo Murillo. So I'm the owner and founder of MW Partners. Soon we're doing a big brand change, and you guys will see that here shortly. But what we do is we work with individuals and personal brand and their companies and helping them launch their products and services into social networks like LinkedIn. So we teach the skill sets in building business using social selling tactics and what we call inbound lead generation. So it's awesome. It works really well, and people make a lot of money when they work with us. Ta-da! Real
So,
simple.
Rigo, today's guest, I was actually, do you remember when we had Jason Meffert on?
Yeah.
He actually does a podcast with our guest, and I was a guest on their podcast, and I had such a good time. And I knew that Kathy was a wealth of information, that she would be so perfect for our audience. So I think we need to bring her on.
Yeah, Donnie, let's bring her in, and let's give her a little round of applause. There it is. That's our studio audience.
I love it.
Studio
sounds very
Huge
excited.
audience.
Yeah, it's huge. It's gigantic. Hey, listen, by the way, you guys, if you are watching live, do us a favor, drop a hashtag live. We always appreciate that. Also, if you are going to be watching this in any time during a replay, drop a hashtag replay into the chat and let us know what you're thinking. We want you to be a part of our community. So the way you do that is you text us 316-799-8052. Donnie, you want to roll that across the bottom for us? You just do a hashtag lunch. Why? Because we do this during lunch, and it used to be called a different show, and we never changed it. So just stick with it, okay? Text lunch to 316-799-8052. Kathy, let's hear from you.
Woohoo! Well, I'm excited to be here. My name is Kathy Gruver. It is not lunchtime for me because I'm in Santa Barbara, California, but I'm a motivational speaker. I'm an author. I'm currently working on my 9th book. Like you mentioned, I have a PhD in natural health with an emphasis in mind-body medicine. And I'm a personal life coach and business coach where I do a lot of work with people who are stuck and they just aren't sure where to go next. And COVID did that to a lot of people, right? We all reevaluated where we were. So I help people figure out their values, figure out their ego states, which is what we're going to talk about a lot today, and really helping people move forward in their life, their career, and their relationships.
So this is something that I was pretty excited about. But here's one of the things. First off, Do you know what the second largest search engine on the planet is?
Bing?
No.
I don't know.
Oh, you're one of them.
I
You're a
don't know.
binger. Okay, all
No,
right,
I'm
I
not.
get it.
I'm a Googler, but I
Yeah,
didn't.
okay, all right, same here. All right, so Google's number one. Number two is YouTube. So if you go
Oh,
to YouTube, yeah, see, you're learning a little bit already. This is
I'm
kind of stuff
learning.
we teach our clients when they say YouTube's not important. I'm like, okay, all right. So you go to YouTube, you type in anything with the word ego, and you're gonna hear everybody talking about how ego is the death of you.
Mhm.
Ego, 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 ego. And this is wrong. If you sit for a few minutes and listen to you explain why this matters, I think this is incredibly important for our audience to understand that almost everybody who speaks on this is speaking from a perspective that's incorrect based on what I'm hearing from you. Now, you correct me if I'm wrong in that statement, but let's talk about these ego states and why it's critical that we actually embrace the ego and not look at it as a killer to our growth.
Right. Well, I want to correct one thing. There's a difference between our ego, which can get out of control and, really do sabotage us, and a difference between ego states. So when I'm referring to ego states, I'm talking about, it's also known as resource states, parts work, internal family systems, and it's those different aspects of ourselves. So it's not like Eckhart Tolle's interpretation of the ego. It's not Freud's ego. It's not our sort of arrogant ego. This is just looking at different aspects of ourselves. So you're different around kids than you are around your parents, than you are around the guys at the bar, than you are around people at the football game, than you are in church, than you are, we have different hats we wear. And so that's what ego states are, is looking at those different parts of ourselves, getting to know them. How do they serve us? How can we serve them? And how can we choose who we want to be in any given moment?
Ooh, I'm gonna love this conversation.
It's a good one. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah, and so when we're looking, this program here, Kathy, we primarily focus in helping individuals understand how to become better leaders, better influencers, because we believe that mentorship and leadership are so critical. We believe that in most professional workplaces, it just doesn't exist anymore. So we're always trying to bring individuals that say, "Hey, I have some knowledge to share." How does this start to come into effect if I'm learning to be a better leader? If I'm working with you, I'm becoming one of your clients, and I'm looking to establish myself better in leadership roles. And of course, we always want this stuff to help us on a personal level as well, right? Because we should be able to cross over. Anything we're learning to do in a workplace should be able to be in our personal lives and our family life. How do we start right there? Like, let's just get into that from a workplace setting. Why does this ego state matter?
Yeah. So let me tell you how we get them, right? Because if we don't know where they came from, we don't know what to do with them. So ego states are formed in childhood, and they are our ways of adapting, of protection, and of fitting in. So I love to use the example of Chandler Bing on Friends, right? I think we've all at least seen one episode of Friends where we know Chandler Bing, and he's the jokester, right? He's the class clown. That is an ego state that he developed to fit in, to relate to others, to dispel stressful situations, right? Because as soon as something gets too heavy for him, what he does, he makes a joke. And there was one episode they even challenged him to not be funny for 24 hours, and he couldn't do it. So that is an ego state that he developed. That's his main ego state. So we all have ego states. They are all hardwired into the brain. So these are not psychological constructs. These things actually exist as sort of different characters in our brain. This is different than multiple personality disorder. For any of you who sound, who are thinking, "Wow, how many parts are there?" Well, we have up to 100 parts, and we tend to see about 10 to 15 of those most frequently. It's
100? Wait a minute.
100, yes.
100. And you said, and it's about 10 of them
10 to
that
15
ground with us the most.
that we see most often. And the starting of this, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but the way to start this is figure out what those 10 or 15 are, right?
So,
name them. What do they do?
Yeah. Here I was focusing on the 100. I'm like, I don't.
You're focusing on the actual topic. I'm still stuck on. What do you mean everybody should have seen one episode of Friends? I'm thinking. Well, do you know our audience? Like, there's two groups, right? Like, you have to be born like before 1985. And then after it, I'm thinking, I don't know if one of my employees have ever seen Friends.
Yeah, that's okay.
Or you've at least
Yeah.
seen a preview where Chandler's being funny.
They probably, I think they've seen the shirts at Spencer's or something like that, or Hot
Oh
Topic.
my God, Spencer Gifts. Yeah, talk about being born before 85.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Where
Anyways,
else can
I'm
you
sorry.
get your the stuff for your dorm room? The penis candle, the
No,
black light, and the
Okay, can we stop
Listen,
aging
so let me tell
ourselves?
you. Let me tell you. Yes, we are dating ourselves, but let me tell you why I brought that up.
yes.
Anita says, "Me love." Well, shocker. Like, yeah, okay. Listen, Anita, we're not going to embarrass you live right now. We're not going to talk about why I know that's
Friends
the
is a
case.
great show.
It's not about Friends. There's way more here.
You brought it up.
So let me tell you why I brought that up.
Yes.
I found that really interesting because I get it. That piece of that behavior, I get it. Humor has always been a tool I've used my whole life.
Mhm.
And it wasn't always about being uncomfortable as much as it was that it seemed to help. It helped relax certain situations, and it always helped make an introduction. So one of the things that I found was a lot of times people would make their own opinions or assumptions. They would look at me, or I would walk into an area and they were already making their evaluation of the type of personality or character I was by the way
Sure.
I looked, by the way I carried myself. And so humor would immediately open up a room, and it would allow people to recognize, oh, okay, this guy's not going to rob me.
Yep.
Right. And I mean, I'm being honest. You can,
Yeah.
this has been my whole life, but at the same time, I found it to be very, very useful in uncomfortable situations.
Yep.
And so
that
when
is
you
an
said
ego
that, I
state.
connected immediately. That's
Yep.
why I brought it up, to be honest.
Yeah. So that's an ego state that is part of you that you have learned to bring up in certain situations. And we all have those, right? But you can't call them at will if you don't know who they are. So you wouldn't walk into a corporation with an all hands on deck meeting and without knowing anybody, just start handing out tasks, right? Because you might have the CEO making copies and the vice president getting coffee and the tech guy answering the phone and the receptionist trying to do IT. You have to identify what their strengths are, what role they actually play on the team before you give them tasks to do. And it's the same way with this internal family, right? We have to know who they are, what their pluses and minuses are. Speaking of that, I should say, all of these states are formed for our own good. They are all there to help us, even ones that are not societally accepted as good, or in our brain we go, oh, I hate when I act like that. That part is there for a really specific positive reason, even the ones that we don't like. So that's important to know.
It's interesting.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gloria.
So Kathy kind of started to touch on the where they came from, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, and that they're there for our own good. Like when, like a lot of times, like I've heard, like by the time you're 7 years old, your personality is fully developed. Like when do these actually start? When do these like, would you say like these are formed by this particular age?
So normally, that's a great question. Normally they are formed sort of up until the age of like 16 or 17. And you can change them and they adapt. So, if you have a horrible trauma at 20, an ego state that was just sort of a seed of an ego state might start to grow and develop at that point. But my understanding of everything that I've read and studied is it's a formed in childhood thing. And I'll tell you why. Because at that point, we do not have a strong sense of self, right? As a 7-year-old, we have to sort of almost bifurcate our brain a little bit to figure out how to adapt to things. We don't know that we have self yet. Self, it's a whole another part of the conversation, but just a preview. Self is us without any ego state on. Self is that balanced part of ourselves, and it's these 8 things, right? It's these 8 C's, and I always forget one, so I'm going to read them. Compassionate, creative, courageous, clear, curious, calm, confident, and connected. And from this place of self, we get to choose which ego state we're putting on. And imagine you're talking about leadership, right, and Rico, and how this is good for our leadership and our personal life. If we are not reactive to things, and that's what gets us in trouble, is that reactivity, right, in communication and leadership and relationships. Mm-hmm. If we can stay responsive and not reactive, we're going to be better leaders, better communicators, better partners, better all of those things. And that's what this work helps us do, identifying those ego states and learning how to stay in self.
Can you say those again for us? A little slower. I want to hear it.
Compassionate, creative, courageous, clear, curious, calm, confident, and connected.
So all of those, I think, are self-explanatory. Help me with clear.
Sure. So
I ask you the question on the word that I'm unclear.
I am clear, unclear. So if I'm,
I totally entertain myself. You see
oh,
that? You
that's
see how
great.
that works? Like I entertain myself all day. It's
I'm an
interesting.
only child. I'm the
So
funniest
the
thing in
eighth-
my own head. I know. Yeah.
So Kathy, he just came up with the 8th C, comedy.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, sometimes we have to put an
That's
ego
good.
state on for that. Sometimes we have to pull at the jester for that one. But yeah, so clear is, so someone comes to you with a conflict, right? And rather than you being reactive to it and overthinking it or overanalyzing it or worrying about it or pulling on some past experience that is now coloring your reactivity to that situation, if you are clear and you're in that neutral space, you can make a better decision. You can be more of the other things. You can be more compassionate. You can have more patience and understanding with someone if you are clear and not muddied by all these other like characters in your head talking to you, right? And again, this is not multiple personality disorder. We talk to ourselves all the time, right? We have a constant running dialogue. Usually those are our ego states chiming in and telling us something. So that's where those come from.
And I'm assuming a lot of times we're not recognizing that they're the different ego states. They're just thoughts, or we're not listening to them, which is probably when we're becoming more reactive because we're not stopping and listening. So help us help on the next stage of this within clear. How does one like prepare themselves to stay in that state, to be able to be clear? Because out of all the ones you said, that seemed to me to be one of the most important, because that would allow you then to understand which to choose.
Yeah. Yeah. Any of those states. So anytime you're in self, well, here, let me give you an example. We have probably all walked away from a situation and reflected on it and gone, oh my God, why did I act that way? I was so rude to that person. Or why was I suddenly jealous? Or why did I feel shame because that guy called me out in the store?
Never.
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 Yeah.
I have never, ever said anything I regret. Ever.
I didn't say regret. Did I use the word regret?
No, you
I
didn't.
did
But I'll
not
tell you
use the
this.
word regret.
This happens
Not being clear.
constantly. Yeah, I'm not being clear.
Yeah, why did I scream at that lady in the store? Like, why was I so rude to that guy at Starbucks? We think about these
Well,
things.
that one I pretty much am clear on. I usually know why. If I'm losing my temper, I know exactly why.
But sometimes we wonder where this came from, right? This is the angry bull, and we all have one. You know, anger is a good thing when it's used properly.
When it's used right, yeah.
It's the part of us that goes, hey, that's unfair, or I'm upset that this happened, or I need to write my congressman, or whatever. It fuels you to action. But if you're just screaming at the guy on the freeway, you might wonder where that came from, right? So this ego state came on and you were completely unaware of it. And that happens all the time to us, right? So my main ego state is called Capricorn, not just because I'm a Capricorn, but I'm very Capricorn. And this is Capricorn. She's so great. She has allowed me to write 9 books. She's allowed me to get my Ph.D. She built a successful practice. She organizes my life. She gets my husband and I's trips put together to the second where everything's printed. And it's funny, this is Capricorn. So like this gesture, I'm in Capricorn. But I can't take her on the vacation with me because she's not fun. She's judgmental. She's bossy. She's a workaholic. She's way type A, plus. So she can organize the trip, and then she has to frickin' sit home.
Okay, so you brought some other stuff up.
Unless there's a problem, and then she'll call the airline and get it frickin' figured out.
Got it. It's Capricorn that gets things resolved and get things fixed.
Yep.
So then each of us, so Lori Ann, myself, all of us, we have a primary ego state that we live in.
Usually. Now it could be mom, it could be engineer, right? Because we also have where's my little engine? So we have this guy, right, who's really analytical. He's got to have his whiteboard and he's got to figure everything out. And there are people that live their lives in this place. And then it becomes, the danger of this is that analysis paralysis, right? Where you can't make a move without pondering it for 20 minutes first. And you're like, oh my God, you have 5 choices on the menu, pick it. It's not that important, right? People have to analyze stuff to death.
That sounds like government and politics.
Right. Or it might be manipulative in a different way. Just to give a shout out. So these are called interactive cards. These are not mine.
I was actually wondering.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are
love
these
these.
tarot cards or what?
These are created. It's a whole different game. These are created by an amazing woman who she did these
Put
cards.
that closer, Kathy, so we can see it. Donnie, zoom in on it.
There you go. Are they backwards, or can you see them?
Yeah, you got it.
straight?
That's your camera. We should have talked to you about that offline.
What is it called again?
They're called interactive cards. And what I can do is I can unreverse myself. Okay, let's do that. I bet that.
Ta-da! There we go. Look at that. That was it.
Yeah, but now I don't know what side I'm on. There we go.
No,
Okay.
you're good, man. Kathy, I'm gonna tell you what. First off, right now, I'm super impressed. Like,
Did I
you
know
did
how to
that in
reverse my camera?
Yes. You think
So,
it's not a big
walk,
deal?
talk, and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah,
apparently.
she's a Capricorn.
So that's Capricorn. I love this discussion. Okay, so here's what I'm like sort of getting from what like, and we're only just.
Oh, real quick too, Lorianne, because I'm gonna give you the podium. I promise. Listen, are you enjoying the discussion? Let us know. I see you online. I see that. No, not you.
These other people.
I'm talking to the
blast.
audience. All right, Donnie, just give me the screen. It's mine. Just give me the screen. Listen, you guys, I see you online. I know you're there. I'm not seeing any comments. I can tell you're there. Are you enjoying the conversation? Let us know. Drop some questions in for Kathy. Let us know. Do you like Lorianne's sweater thing? Like, tell us. Do you like what we're doing? Do you not like it? We want to hear from you. So listen, drop stuff into the comments. Let us know. Anita, I know you're there. Listen, thank you guys so much. All right, ladies, I'm going to give it back. And Lorianne, the floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you. So Kathy, with these, like you're talking about like the engineer and like Capricorn, do you think part of, I want to like say like air quotes problem is that people hang out in maybe like they think like, here's my main character, here's my main ego state, and they almost feel like I have to always be here instead of inviting some of the other ego states, like kind of like what you said about like I don't go on vacation with Capricorn, or well, I probably keep her in my purse just in case I need to pull her out to take care of something. But she's just like you said, she's not fun. Do you think that we just kind of get stuck in, but this is who I am, and we don't kind of venture out and play with some of these other states?
Absolutely. So once we're conscious that we even have these states, it's so much easier to recognize when they are coming on. And can I give you an example?
Yes.
Can I swear?
I was just saying, you do whatever. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I was doing
Thank
a conference.
you for asking, though.
Well, sure. I don't know. Some people don't let me swear. I was doing a conference in Las Vegas. It was a naturopath conference, and I left the evening mixer, and I got in the elevator, and I forgot that we were sharing the hotel with a bunch of roller derby girls. I'm assuming you all know what a roller derby girl is. If you don't, ask Google or YouTube, and you can find out what a roller derby girl is. So I'm in the elevator, and
are we just identified when you were born? Anyways, go ahead.
You said go to YouTube second. Okay, so I did.
Yeah. No, you're good.
So I get in the elevator, and they thought it would be really funny to see how many roller derby girls they could get in the elevator too. So they're shoving. I'm now pressed up against the back of the elevator, and I'm unhappy about this. And
I would have traded that time with you.
Shoving. Oh, it was not pretty.
Of course you would.
Shoving and shoving.
That would have been. That's like a fantasy, right? I'm sorry, like to be stuck in an elevator full of roller derby girls. That'd be great.
It was interesting. So the doors finally squeeze shut, right? And I hear the alarm go off, and the elevator drops about 2 feet, which was terrifying. And I realized I was trapped in this elevator with about 22 roller derby girls and one guy. I'm not sure where he came from. And they thought this was the funniest thing in the world. They were laughing, and I had a choice.
You see, I would have enjoyed myself. I'm laughing my ass off right now.
I had a choice. I could feel that I had a choice. I could either go, okay, this is stupid, I'm stuck here, or I could be a raging bitch. And raging bitch won. And I felt her come on, and she was judgy, and she's like, this is dangerous, and this is stupid, I'm doing Capricorn, and I'm shoved in the back of the thing, and I'm like, motherfucker, stupid, all these languages. And finally, someone goes, oh my God, there's somebody else in here. And I'm like, hi. And so they call the fire department, and they're passing around a bottle of Jack. Now, this could have been a blast. Dude, This seriously could have been so much fun. But Capricorn took over. And this was at a point, and I didn't know anything about ego states yet, but I could feel I had a choice in how I responded to this. Capricorn took over. She didn't want Jack. She didn't want to have fun. She didn't want to find this amusing. She wanted to get to the freaking room so that she could do what she needed to do to get up the next morning. It was like 10 o'clock.
You
I had
got
no
free
rush.
tickets. I would. That's what I would have done. I would have been
Yeah.
like, look, you guys owe me tickets.
There was no reason that I shouldn't have been in that moment and enjoyed myself, except for the fact that Capricorn was so strong in my life at that point that she took over. So somewhere there's a YouTube video, probably, of like, because they had their phone out, of all these girls and one guy having a blast and me in the corner going.
But you know what? This happens though. This happens. You don't have to be stuck in an elevator with roller derby girls, but this happens. We do this all the time, right? We get into situations where we can feel our blood boiling, and you know, there's been, if you've been in any level of leadership at all, if you've ever managed people, you have done this where you have completely misevaluated a situation, and you didn't do it either out of ignorance or stupidity. You looked at evidence. There was everything that you needed there for you to assume that all the wrong things happened, but what you didn't do was take into consideration some of the other facts that would need to come from people that you didn't take time to talk to.
Yep.
And then you find out that there were other things that were at play which brought that situation, and you did something dumb. You lost your temper. You made an assumption. You blamed the wrong person. You know, you took it and elevated it higher than you needed to before you took some time to, you know, to evaluate the situation. One of my best friends used to tell me something that always stuck with me, and he would tell me it can wait. Just remember, a lot of times it can wait. If you need to be reactive, react, but keep it all internal. Like, write it out. Create an email. Don't put anybody in the email. Like, don't put a name up there, but write it out. Journal it, whatever you need to do, but get it together. That's what it takes to get the expression out. But then wait. Like, it can wait. Almost everything will resolve itself if you just chill the hell out.
Well, absolutely. And even if, you know, even go back to
waiting is an ego state.
Well, what I was going to say was, even if this is your initial reaction, if you can pause that and sit in self, which is clear and is that pause, right? Taking that pause is so key before you react. Then you might find that, you know, this is how you want to react. Well, that's a hard one to see. That this is how you want to react, right? It's the superhero of this can replace that anger sometimes, right? And the way to stay in self, meditation is one of the greatest ways. Meditation, mindfulness, breath work, any of those types of practices, yoga, tai chi, martial arts. Some people find that place of self from running or listening to music, or, you know, everybody has their way of being in that neutral space. So whatever works for you. I'm a huge fan of meditation. Me being very type A, Capricorn, not a great meditator, but I figured out how to do it and to stay in self. So, you know, we switch ego states so quickly. We switch ego states all the time in a matter of seconds.
Huh. Interesting.
Okay, so how do we figure out, for those people that don't know what those like 10 ego states that are basically hanging around them most of their life, how do we like teach leaders like to uncover what some of these, I want to call them characters, because
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
It's exactly what they're. So there's a couple ways. When I'm working with clients, everybody gets a deck of the interactive cards, whichever way that goes. And I love to flip through these. There's about 85 of them. They're only images. There's no words on them, and everybody sees something different in those pictures. So I like to have my clients flip through those and pick out characters, like you said, which is a great word for it, what they relate to. If you don't have a deck of cards, it's all about just sitting down with pen and paper and writing out, okay, well, I have a manager part, and I have a mom part, and I have an organized part, and I have a sporty part, and we all have a rebel. People hate to hear that, but we all have a rebel. If we didn't, we'd still be sitting on our parents' laps, right? It's that rebel that jumps down and runs and kind of looks back like, can I go? And if the parent says, yeah, go ahead, I'll be right here, then that rebel's developed in a good way, a more healthy way. It's that part of us that picks up the food from the high chair and goes, and the parent says no and we throw it anyway, that's the rebel starting to develop. We all have a rebel. The rebel serves us really well in certain times, right? We all have parts that worry. We have vulnerable parts. We have pleasing parts because we want to connect and help other people. But sometimes if our pleasing part gets carried away, then we find ourselves doing the 30-second bake sale for the PTA when we don't want to do it. So that's when these parts that are healthy for us get a little out of control. Like I said, I love Capricorn, but man, if she gets to take over 100% of the time, I am not a happy person and I am not fun to be around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So writing it down is one of the best ways, writing those out.
And so once we write them down, or we have like people like, probably get a deck of these cards and start flipping through them and figure out like what are your main characters, which cards you are really identify with, so that then we can, just like you said, you don't want to be Capricorn all the time.
Nope.
You want to, and you could sort of alluded to this like in the beginning, we want to be able to tap into what's the character that we need for this moment here, for this task, to like inspire, like as a speaker, like you and I know that we have to tap into and step into that speaker character. Who's that person that gets on stage, that inspires audiences, that works with clients? I mean, these are all these different characters that we probably like step into like constantly throughout the day.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because when I do this as a workshop, because I go into companies and organizations and I do this as a keynote, and I got my PowerPoint, because Capricorn, when I'm speaking, it's interesting because you get Kathy speaker. That's the PhD me, right? That's the me that has all the knowledge. So this little librarian kind of type person is flipping through my brain and giving me the knowledge that I need, keeping me on time, making sure the slides move, all that sort of thing. Now, if you only get that part of me, that's pretty damn boring, right? Those are those talks you heard where it's blah, 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 PowerPoint, blah, 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 PowerPoint. That's not fun. No one wants to hear that. So you also get the entertaining part of me, which makes it funny, so that it's engaging and it's funny, and I've got silly PowerPoint, and so you get my entertainer too. But if you only get my entertainer, then it's stand-up comedy and not a workshop, and you're not actually learning anything. Right. So you get kind of this mix of characters. And then let's face it, anytime you get in front of anybody to do anything, there's that vulnerable part of you, right? There's that kind of scared little kid of, I hope they like me, and what if this gets screwed up? And now you can't only have that, because I think we've also seen that person speaking where it's and I don't and it becomes this awkward, like, and you're like, oh my god,
that's why they need, that's what that person needs to sit with Lorianne. That's all that is. That person just needs to go through Lorianne's course and learn how to be a better public speaker, right, Lorianne?
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you for that. So what I'm hearing
plug.
What were you gonna say?
I said a little plug, little Lorianne plug.
Thank you. So Kathy, what I'm hearing you say, like when you know like your task, like, and we're just talking about speaking here, like you're going to be the speaker. So you have to pull these different characters, different ego states, like we're all doing this together.
Yep.
Like for this next, like my 60-minute keynote, maybe you've got like 3 or 4 characters that are actually like working with you, and they all like take their turn during your keynote.
Yep. Absolutely. And I do it without thinking about it. Like I don't stop and go, okay, I'm going to be funny now.
Right.
Let me bring out my entertainment. That would be weird. People would carry me off the stage. But we switch through so quickly. I mean, how often have we had this conversation with ourselves, right? Of, I had a really rough day. I think I'd like ice cream for dinner. Well, then your judge comes out, right, and says, well, you can't have ice cream for dinner. That's inappropriate, and you're putting on too much weight. And then your manager comes out and goes, look, we talked about this. You're trying to lose weight for summer. And then your shameful kid comes out and goes, oh, I'm a piece of shit. I can't believe I want ice cream for dinner. And then your happy pig comes out, and the next thing you know, you're having Haagen-Dazs as your meal for the night, right? We switch through things that fast. And when I give that example, people go, were you in my house last night? Because we've all had, we see a commercial, and we're like, oh, I want Cheetos for dinner. And we go through these different roles in our head, right? So this is the next step after sort of identifying them. So I like to tell people to pick the top 3 to 5 states that they have. And maybe it's just simply, okay, I have a manager, I have a mom, I have an analyzer, I have a pleaser. Maybe it's as simple as that.
I was about to ask real quick, Kathy, is how do you identify those? Like, how do you identify, if you don't know, if you don't have some crafty deck of cards or you're trying to understand this, how do you go about, I mean, does this go through a day? Do you journal? Do you write down? Like, do you go through a week? Like, how
Yeah.
do you identify these ego states?
Yeah, I like plopping down with a piece of paper and pen, and I actually do this in person during the workshop. Is
Of
I
course
have
you
everybody
do.
write down their top 3 states, and there's a, you know, I mean, it's sort of the roles you play every day is the easiest to do that. So when you're at work, what do? Well, it's kind of your manager state, right? We all have a manager state who puts our pants on in the morning and gets us to things on time and buys the groceries. And, we all have that part of ourselves. And we all have a caregiver part. And maybe that's a bigger part for you than somebody else. We all have a pleasing part. Sometimes we have a jester part that is a big one for you. So I have people write their top 3 down. And then there's a choice. You can either just write down what they do, manager, jester, mom, or you can name them. And you have to name them by what they want to be called, not by what you think they want to be called. I'll give you an example. I had a client come to my office and she said, Kathy, I don't know what my problem is. I can't get off the couch. It's been 3 weeks of wine, ice cream, Netflix. I just can't get off the couch. And I said, okay, well, what part of you is on the couch? And she said, lazy ass. And I said, oh. I said, does that part want to be called lazy ass? Or is your judgy part calling it lazy ass? And she thinks for a second and she goes, yeah, it's my judgy part calling it that. And I said, okay, because I wouldn't want to be called lazy ass. If it
What's your name?
that,
It? Can you tell us? I'm curious.
I can tell you. I said, well, close your eyes and just like tap into that part and think about it. And she called it 14-year-old. Because she had just lost her husband after a long bout with cancer. She was in horrible grief. And she didn't want to adult because the last time she adulted, her husband died. And so she was this 14-year-old sitting on the couch, eating the ice cream, drinking the wine, watching the Netflix. And, 1 or 2 nights of that is okay. We have to give all of our states their due. But when it becomes so overwhelming that you can't get out of this state, and we know people who are angry all the time, everything is some giant dramatic thing, right?
It's Lorianne. She's always in a bad mood.
Oh, yeah. She looks very
constantly. She's mean. Lorianne's mean. I'm joking. Nobody would ever believe that. Like, she's always smiling and in a good mood and everything's wonderful. And I'm like,
well, she's got a sassy side, though. She's got a sassy side.
Donnie agrees. Definitely, he said.
Yeah. So write down what it wants
Big
to be
old
called,
meanie.
if you know. Yeah. Write it down what it wants to be called if you know, or just do it by kind of the category it falls into. And then write its positive traits. And I'm going to use negative in quotes because there's not really a good word for it, because they're not negative. That's when it gets out of control. So Capricorn, organized, successful, natural leader, great communicator. When Capricorn gets out of control, judgy, type A, bossy, not very fun, workaholic, cold, emotionless, which is great when you have to go do a tax audit, not great when you're on a date with your husband. So, when does that character get out of control? And then to get a little psychologically on us, what role is it serving in your life? What does Capricorn do for you? And is there a fear? I'm using Capricorn as an example. Is there a fear that if she doesn't do that job, something's going to happen?
Okay, so I got a question for you, Kathy. You ready?
Yes, sir.
And then I'm going to ask Lorianne if she'd be willing to do a little bit of exercise here with you.
Sure.
Because I see Lorianne like really digging on this conversation, right? What was that, Lorianne?
You love putting me on the spot.
I do. You're so good at it. That's all. And plus, I'm here. Listen, I'm here for the comedic aspect of it. I'm here to lighten the
and I'm here
mood.
to smile and spread the joy.
You're just listen. You're the reason why they're coming. Let's just be real, right? They're coming to listen to you. All right. So, Kathy, is there a possibility that there is an ego state that will exist that really is just not working, that won't work for you? It's there. You have to identify it, but understand that it's a part of who you are, but it can never be called on. Maybe it might, but it's probably going to be put away for most of your life.
Yeah. So that's a really great question. So in the categories of ego states, there's one called a firefighter and distractor. And you hear firefighter and you think, oh, yay, they come to save the day. So the majority of our ego states are proactive. The manager is proactive, right? She's going to get everything in order. There's Capricorn. She's going to get everything in order to make sure we're protected, safe, taken care of, connected, all that good stuff. When that doesn't work, then a reactive ego state comes in, such as a firefighter or a distractor. And this is our hair pulling, gum chewing, smoking, drugs, drinking, gambling, sex, suicide ideation, addiction, all of those parts, even though they are societally unacceptable, and even the parts of us go, oh man, I got to stop drinking. This is getting out of control. Or why'd I pick up that guy at the bar? Even if there's regrets or
I'm
judgment about
always
it
having
later.
that particular regret. The guy at the
Why'd you
bar
pick up that
one,
guy at the bar? Yeah,
yeah,
well,
bites me in the
we
butt
can,
every time. Bad
we'll,
terminology.
we'll have a whole session afterwards on that. Those parts are there to help us.
I am honestly interested in this. Listen, you were warned.
Oh no, I don't care.
All right. I'm just saying, like Lorianne warned you. I already associated myself with characters and friends. Like you knew what was happening.
I have a huge jester part, right? I mean, my dad was the funniest man in the world. So yeah, I love laughing, and if you got a good smartass comment, I appreciate it. So yeah. So, but those
Good.
parts that are
You're a good sport, Kathy. I'm
Yeah.
telling you right now, I'm enjoying this.
I'm already inviting her back. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
I have so many things to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get back into that fireman.
Yeah. So even the parts that are there that we deem either, again, societally negative or scary, or those parts are there to protect us, right? And I do a lot of work with couples where I'll actually sit down with the cards and I'll have them say, when I feel like this, I think you do that, and well, I feel like this when you do that, and it becomes the most beautiful exercise of, typically we're sitting on the floor and just putting these cards down, because other people's states trigger our states, right? So it's funny, you're talking about you're a good sport. So when you interrupt, I can choose how to respond to that, right? I can either be mad that you're interrupting this important thing that I'm saying, or I can be like, it's your show, do whatever the hell you want. Or I can be like, oh my God, this is great exchange. I love that we're having this banter. I get to pick how I respond to that. 3 different ego states, right?
So who's here then? When you do shows like this, which ego state is in? Because you're explaining you're expressing intelligence, you're expressing a lot of organization. No, you're in your zone. You're definitely in your zone because this is what you do. It's what you're passionate about. But at the same time, you're tolerant, and you're accepting to all the exchange and banter. So which ego state is it? It can't be Capricorn, right? Or is that Capricorn?
Well, yes. Capricorn keeps me organized, right? But also when I'm not in a state, I'm in self. So I'm sitting there waiting to see how I want to respond to you guys. And I have to say, I've done radio shows that have been a nightmare because they're unprofessional, because they're egotistical, because I don't even need to be there.
The exchange, you're saying that the folks on the other end.
Yeah, it's their monologue, and every time I try to say something, I literally had a woman who would ask me a question, and then halfway through my first sentence would interrupt me. And I never got to say a word on the show. And finally, she asked a question, and I'm talking, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually getting to answer a question. And then I hear, beep. You know what I mean? She fucking muted me. Talked over me, then brought me back in as if I was privy to this conversation. Okay, Capricorn was not happy. That was the same bitch that came out in the elevator with the roller derby girls. I would never do it. And she invited me back. She's like, you were such a great guest. You should come back. And I'm like,
no,
why?
sorry, I'm busy.
Why? Here's what I'll do. I'll record the start of 5 sentences and you could just play those.
Brilliant.
So I mean, I cycle through ego states depending on what is being thrown at me, right? And
some people just don't know what they're doing either, Kathy.
Well, that's a whole nother. And Capricorn doesn't like that, right? Because Capricorn, I can't tell you how many barbecues at other people's houses I've taken over because the meat's not going to cook itself.
Right? So here's a little trick on that one, okay? When you're that cook, like I'm that cook. I know it's hard to believe, but when you're in this good a shape, right? You get there because you're an excellent cook. I always thought that was absolutely true. Never trust a skinny chef.
There you go. Exactly.
But no, little tip: eat before the barbecue. I'm not kidding. Got it. There's my timer time down. I'm back. Hold on.
Never know. That's good preparation.
No, I'm not kidding. Like anytime, like when I would take my clients out, or like these are little tricks. Okay, so I'm going to share with you guys some stuff. I've entertained people all over the world, literally. Yep. Okay, and as I've worked with my clients all over the place, these are little things you learn to do. Certain aspects of preparing yourself, getting things ready. Taking Alka-Seltzers prior to any sort of Tylenol. Like literally, I would take things in case issues happen later that I would be all right in. You never know what kind of food is going to happen. You never know the cleanliness level. You never know if you're going to get sick all of a sudden. So there was a lot of things I would do. So I would eat prior, not heavy, but I would always eat prior to going out. I would eat prior to any big event. So what would happen is when I would go and I would sit down, I could have something light, and I wasn't being distracted by the food. I wasn't being distracted by my hunger, and I wasn't going to let that ego state, the fat boy come out, and then he's fine with that.
A card for you.
Yeah, he's been called that one forever. So I have to make a sidetrack counter for this video. That's funny.
So as you were saying that, this is what popped into my head, right? So this is
bring it up.
This Hold it closer to the camera if you can.
It's so hard with this ring light. This is and I'm reversed now. There we go. Okay. I kind of have it. Okay, so this is the show up completely prepared, right? Anything this character could want,
the Boy Scout,
including the dog with the little barrel of stuff, as opposed to Happy Pig that suddenly eats all this crap without thinking about it and gets sick. So yeah, you put on a very organized ego state, which I love.
Now, just so you know, you learn that through failure. Right. You learn that through failure. I remember showing up. I was in this was in Beijing, China, and it was a big event. And I showed up to the first time to this big dinner that had a process to it. And some of the most delicious food I've ever seen was coming out, but you're not supposed to eat. Like, you just look at the food, you pick at it. The whole thing is, and then it was this, there's so much more detail to this, but they bring out the traditional rice wine liquor, and then there's beer, and that's it. You're not allowed to have water. There is literally nothing else to drink. And the only time you can drink, you have to toast someone else at a table. And each table has been classed, depend on where you are in status. And so depending on, if there's a huge process to this. And I didn't really get as much preparation as they probably should have given me. I was starving. And so the only way to try to deal with that was to, well, at least let me get something to drink. So then I would have to toast. There's been moments in my life where I drank too much. That was one of them.
That sounds like trouble.
It was absolutely trouble. And there wasn't so much as a regret as much as it was a lesson learned. And I never again made that mistake again. And I said, I will always prepare prior. I will eat prior. I will make sure
that's when you created that character.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The character was probably there.
Yeah.
He typically, but you're pulling on it. So like you said, are there parts of ourselves that kind of live dormant and then pop up occasionally? Yeah, I mean, I am not an angry person typically, but if you catch me tired, stressed, hungry, all of those things, and then you cut me off on the freeway, it's going to be a really different conversation than if I meditated and I just came from dance class and I've had a pretty good day. We are more vulnerable to those, quote, negative aspects of our states when we're already stressed, when we're already negative, when we're hungry, that hangry thing, that's real. When we're stuck in an ego state, it tends to propagate. And I've had conversations with people. God, I remember I was in Vegas talking to a taxi driver, and he was an ex-military, and you would have thought he was still military. I mean, he was so short and so, like, I said, he's talking something about a kidney stone. And I'm like, oh, that must be painful. It doesn't hurt. I don't feel pain. I don't know. And this is how he's reacting to me in a taxi. And I'm thinking, dude, we need to do some coaching with you, because he was so identified with that ego state. To him, there was no other choice than, I'm still fighting that war. And it was fascinating to observe. I did this workshop for a bachelor party. Yeah. I know. 12 guys.
Can you see that one? I have an idea, boys.
We're
going to go have every one of your egos. We're going to have them challenged by a professional egoologist. I don't know what do you call this, by the way?
Well, it depends on how you're doing it. It's internal family systems, ego state work, parts work, resource state therapy. I call it typically parts work or inner family systems, but no, it's ego state work. And
by the way, I'm extremely fascinated by the studies that you have focused in. I love the direction of what you do. Like, I've always found it fascinating. The mind is an incredible thing, and the psychology of a mind is an incredible thing. And the more I'm learning, and the more I press into it, the more fascinated I am, in the more powerful I realize you can become in areas, not in a negative power, but just understanding. So just so
Yeah.
you know, I find what you do extremely fascinating,
Oh, cool.
but you totally fit the model. And I can see right now, knowing a lot of military, how you're going to trigger them like this because you are confident and you have this knowledge of the mind, and so instantly you're, whether, I guarantee you, whether you know it or not, you're saying words that are challenging someone who's already in a complex
Yep.
dealing with their ego, and you're saying it must have, kidney stones suck, I had them, they're the worst pain of my life, they were horrible.
Yep.
So if he said they didn't hurt, I'm like, bullshit.
Right. Well, and that was just his, I mean, everything was so combative. He was stuck in and there's a card for that. I mean, he was stuck in that
I
military
see. That's the
place.
thing. I don't think he was stuck, Kathy. I think he reacted to it. He was threatened, so he went to what he knows how to combat, and that's what I think
His
is interesting.
perception of
Is
threat, sure.
that was it? Yeah, you were a threat. Why were you a threat? Because you immediately had an understanding, and they can feel it. I can feel it. Like, the thing is, even though I'm extremely fascinated about it, there are so many things, and with individuals like myself, I think with men more than anything, we have insecurities and we don't like to deal with them. Women have insecurities and go, how do I process this? Right?
Well, and that goes back to the bachelor party, right? So I show up with 12 guys. They don't know why I'm there. The guy who organized this did not tell them why I was showing up at 9:30 in the morning on a Saturday in the middle of their bachelor party weekend. Some of them had already been drinking beer, and I'm like, oh my God, this is either going to be the best thing ever or a nightmare. And we sat down with the cards, and I divided them into groups, and I told them the whole backstory of what ego states were. I have never seen more engaged people in doing this. There were tears, there were hugs. The one guy came up to me after the event, and he said, you know what? I can't unknow this now. Like, everybody I meet, I'm going to be watching them switch ego states.
Yeah.
And you can see it. You can see people do it. You know, they react to something so quickly, and you're like, wow, he flew off the handle fast. That was somebody switching ego states. So now that you know this exists, I stand at parties and I go, oh, he's now trying to pick her up. Oh, he just got really loud. So he's trying to show off something for the group. You know, it's like, I love being in groups and watching this now. It's fascinating to me. So let me just recap before we get, because I know we're about to end.
Yeah,
so,
we're getting close.
Yeah, so they're formed in childhood. We all have them. They're hardwired into the brain. And the best way to figure them out is to write them down according to either category. Excuse me, my coughing ego state came up. Either by category or by what they want to be called. And then figure out their positive and seemingly negative traits and how they serve you. And then work on staying in self, which we did. We'll have to have a whole nother conversation about that. Meditate, breathe, mindfulness, all of that stuff. See if you can't stay, you know, in this sort of, this light is killing me. This sort of like, there we go. This sort of like really Zen state, right? And the more you can stay in self, then you can feel the states coming on. You can choose what state you want to be in. And you're those 8 things: compassionate, creative, courageous, caring, clear, curious, calm, confident, all of those things. That's just my quick recap.
I love it. Kathy, how can people find out about you? Where can they go and learn about what you do more? And like, where do they follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Dr. Kathy Gruver on Instagram and Kathy Gruver on LinkedIn. And then my website is kathygruver.coach. And my speaking site is kathygruver.com. I'm on YouTube, Dr. Kathy Gruver. Should probably update that now that you said that. And yeah, I love hearing from people. And I do one-on-one coaching, team coaching, relationship coaching, all that fun stuff. So.
I love it. Lorianne, what do you think, man? What was this? What do you think? Let's talk about Kathy like she's not here.
Okay. This was such a great conversation. I really like this. And we definitely have to have Kathy back. I know that I'm going to go follow her. But I just think it's absolutely fascinating. It reminds me of actually this discussion of an exercise that a coach gave me a long time ago. And he was, you know, basically just trying to help me like figure out all the different, like he called them the different hats that I wear in my life. And I remember looking at it and saying, you know, and this was years ago, on the personal side, I had so much going on. And on my business side, I didn't have as much going on. And to me, what I took away from that was no wonder, like my business wasn't doing as well because I could just see it. But had I had Kathy and had this discussion, it would have been like, well, let's look in your personal life, Lorianne, and what can we use over there that your business obviously needs? And so I just love like this discussion that like there are positives and negatives, well, the air quote negatives, that each character brings to our life. And it's got me thinking about like, well, when I need to sit down to write like social media content, help a client write a new speech, write an introduction, like what character needs to come in, or characters, I keep using characters, but what ego states, do I need to borrow from that are going to benefit like this particular task? And it makes it more fun, I think. Like, who can I recruit today, right now, for this task?
Yep. Absolutely. I love it. That's exactly right. And, picking who you want to be. And then, again, we could, at some other time get into the psychological aspect of why are they there? What purpose are they serving? Capricorn is terrified if she's not there. So how do I handle that? Right. If she doesn't have a role in my life, I don't exist. I'm not successful. People won't like me. I'll get bullied and beat up. And, it comes from childhood. So, that's a whole nother conversation.
Now we're getting, but the thing is that this is life. And I think you'll always have to deal with that and understand it. And I truly believe that those of us that take the time to want to learn as much as possible, not everybody needs to hold a PhD like you do. But this is why it's wonderful that you've taken the time to do it, because now I can connect with you. I can work with you. I can go through the things that you offer, and I can learn from you. I can learn from the years you've put in to help yourself and help others so that I can be better and help others. That is the intention of this entire show, you guys. Our Contagious Leadership Program is here to do one thing, and that is to try to expose as much content and information from individuals who are out there and who have a passion to lead, to help, to serve, to build. And if we can bring that to you, and if you got one thing out of this, I don't care if it was for entertaining or if it was to actually educate you in any way, but it gave you something, please let us know. That's how we get it. Okay, you want to give back to us? Share, right? Subscribe, follow us on our channels, follow our guests, sign up for our newsletter, get the updates on this every week. Be a part of our community. We want to hear from you. We're excited as we're getting ready to go into the new year, how Lorianne and I and the team have been working to build this up, to get this ready for you, to bring more guests like Kathy on, to get an even clearer focus and build that community up so that you can be better in what you do. That is our passion here, is grow and then help others so that way they can transform lives as well. All right, you guys, listen, I want to thank Dr. Kathy. Thank you so much for being here today and being a part of our audience. Donnie, give her another round of applause. And Lorianne, always a pleasure and always honored to have you as our co-host here, a part of our show. So you guys, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, follow us on our channels, and be a part of this. Let us know how we're doing. We want to hear it. I don't care if you don't like it. Tell me and tell me why. So then that way we can be better. That's the focus of everything. So, all right, you guys, listen, God bless. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your families as we're getting ready at the end of the year. If we don't talk to you before, we do have shows, by the way, before the end of the year and prior to Christmas. But you guys, happy holidays. Have a great new year. We'll talk to you next week right here. Don't miss us. See you soon.
Bye, everybody.